Okay, welcome to another skill with Sydney and Sam. We are going to talk about please today. But first, I think it's really important that we take a step back and really connect with our bodies. I know Sam and I have had, I think both had a week where we really just weren't feeling well. And so in those moments, we can do one of two things. We can shove that crap away and try to take as many drugs as possible and just avoid the pain and just whatever, try to live our lives and, die in the process. Or we can notice the pain and attend to the pain and do what we need to be okay. And so we're going to walk through a brief mindfulness of pain exercise. These are actually really, really helpful exercises if you experience chronic pain. I do this a lot with folks that I work with in medical settings. And so what I'm going to have you do to start is go ahead, get in your mindful positions, shoulders back, feet flat on the floor. You can rest your palms either on your legs or palms up if you want to invite anything in. And what I'm going to have you do today is you can either close your eyes or gently rest your gaze somewhere in front of you. And I'll have you start by taking a couple nice deep breaths. A nice slow exhale. And I'd love for you to direct your attention to any space in your body where you're noticing pain or tension or fatigue. As you center on those pain spots, I'd like for you to take a nice deep breath into the pain. And then exhale away from that space. Keep breathing in and out of that pain spot. And I want you to just notice what happens to the pain as you do this. We're going to give you a little bit of space, and Sam will ring the bell when it's time for us to come back together. All right, go ahead and come back. I love the Tibetan singing bowl. It's a beautiful way to end a mindfulness practice. Last thing I'll say about that practice is if you notice that your mind tries to move away from pain spots, I really want you to be holding that lightly because, of course, you don't want to sit with pain. It's a really hard thing to do, and we are just building up our capacity to be present with our pain. So great work, no matter what happened in that practice, right? And I encourage you to come back to that if you're someone that does experience pain on a pretty regular basis. So today we're going to be talking about our please skills. Again, this is taking care of our body. And by doing this, we are also caring for our mind. Okay? our mind and our emotions, we are way, way more vulnerable to experience strong emotions when we are not taking care of our bodies. So this is handout 20 in emotion regulation. And we're going to walk through the core components of please here, and they're going to seem pretty simple. And my goal and my advice to you as we move through this is to be as non-judgmental as possible. Okay, I want you just to notice where you're at with these different pieces of physical well-being and be very curious about what you could do to up our kind of care for our bodies just a little bit. Okay, that's my goal for us today. So we are going to start with PL of the please skills. And one way you can think about this is treating physical illnesses. I know that doesn't map perfectly onto PL, but that's okay. We're going to tolerate the worksheet. And so what this means, right, is if you are sick, getting medical care, taking care of yourself, resting when you need to. I've also heard this first bit talked about as, what is it? Rinse, lather, repeat. And so this is, washing your body on the regular, especially when we find ourselves really, really busy or in the midst of like depression. It can feel so effortful to take a shower and brush our teeth and wash our face. And I say that with no judgment because I have been there. And it is so important that we prioritize those little things and celebrate. If you are having a hard time brushing your teeth, every time you brush your teeth, celebrate that little win because I hear you and it can be really, really hard. Anything else you want to say in relation to treating physical illnesses, Sam?
I think you covered it.
We're going to now shift into the E, which is eating, specifically balanced eating. And I'm going to turn this one over to Sam, because this is one that she really likes to speak to.
Yes, this is something I'm very passionate about. And the first thing that I want to start off with is when we're talking about balanced eating, we are not talking about dieting. We are not talking about restriction. We are talking about nourishing our bodies in the way that our individual bodies need. Mm-hmm. And what this looks like is having 3 meals a day with maybe 2 snacks if we're feeling like it, and eating at regular times throughout the day and knowing exactly when the next time that you're going to be eating is. Mm-hmm. And this can be really hard if we are feeling a lot of emotions, if we're feeling very depressed. We might have the urge to maybe not eat until the end of the day and just have a big dinner to make up for it. And what the balanced eating piece of please tells us to do is balance our eating throughout the day, have at least 3 consistent meals throughout the day, and listen to our bodies with what our bodies feel we need. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what this looks like is, man, I haven't had a vegetable in a week. I might want to just, add a little extra veggies to my dinner tonight. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's what it looks like. And sometimes it looks like, I am freaking craving ice cream, so I'm going to have it. And that's what balanced eating is all about, is just listening to your body and also recognizing that each individual body needs something a little different. So what my balanced eating looks like probably isn't a mirror image of what Sydney's balanced eating looks like. Mm-hmm. And an important piece here is just acknowledging and honoring those individual differences too.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I couldn't have said any of that any better. Spot on. Mm-hmm. Good. All right. Our next one is going to be the A, and this is avoiding mood altering substances. And what we mean by this is notice, right, if there's particular substances that you have used in the past or, do use currently, just notice what those do for you and notice the consequences, right? in the past have drank a lot of caffeine. And this might not necessarily be what we think of when we say like mood altering substances. And it is a substance. And when I drank a lot of caffeine, I started to notice I get nauseous. I wasn't sleeping. And so for me, what this looked like was cutting back and saying, okay, I get 2 cups of coffee a day. And that really works for me. And I really enjoy my coffee. So I wasn't going to give it up. So that is my kind of balanced approach here. Also, notice if you're someone that likes a glass of wine or likes to drink, notice if you're someone that gets anxiety the next day, that like hangover anxiety, if that's sticking with you, like, okay, notice where do I need to cap myself to be okay? Okay. And same thing with other illicit drugs. We typically want to stay away, and we're not here to shame you, right? Notice what impact those drugs have on your body and find a way forward that feels wise minded for you. Okay. This is avoiding mood altering substances. It's a dialectic of, yes, we probably want to stay away from drugs. And, right, we are humans, and humans have used drugs for thousands and thousands of years. And so, okay, let's use what works for us and not use what doesn't work for us. Okay. Next, we'll talk about sleep. I'll say a few things, and then Sam, I'd love your input on this one too. First and foremost, I'll say with sleep, I'm someone that if I don't get enough sleep, and for me, enough sleep is like 7 to 8 hours, I describe myself as a monster. And I know that's a judgment term, but truly, I am incredibly prone to emotions, way more likely, especially to be irritable. I have a hard time taking care of my body, balancing my eating when I haven't had enough sleep. So this one is really, really central to me. And again, for me, I need 7 to 8 hours of like good quality sleep to be okay. But Sam, I'd love to hear if you have anything to add to that.
I am very similar with that. I also need about 8 hours of sleep, or else I am very vulnerable to emotion mind. And I think one of the things about sleep that I like to highlight is that the quality of sleep matters too, in addition to the duration. And so for me, and I'm sure we can get into this in a little bit, following those sleep hygiene recommendations to make sure that the quality of my 8 hours of sleep is really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's just go there now. So this is handout 20B, and this is a sleep hygiene protocol. And here's the deal with sleep hygiene. I know some of us are more or less likely to get good sleep or be able to fall asleep or be able to stay asleep, right? We're all different at baseline here. And there are things we can do, little things that help us, or at least make us more likely to get higher quality sleep, like Sam was talking about. And so I'll let you go ahead and go through the sleep hygiene protocol in 20B. I'm going to pull out a couple of my favorites and just notice on this protocol that there's tips and tricks for increasing the likelihood that you get kind of restful sleep. There are tips for if you have trouble falling asleep because you're anxious or ruminating. And there are tips for if you find yourself just awake when you are supposed to be asleep. Like maybe you're really calm and just are like, nope, not tired. And so just know that there's different things we all struggle with in relation to sleep, that there are different tips for each kind of category. So just a couple tips I want to pull out. I know one of the most important things with sleep is consistency. And that means like consistent bed and wake time. And you've probably heard this before, and it's okay if you want to grumble a little bit. I grumble too. And one of the biggest things is keeping your wake time consistent. Okay. This is actually one of the biggest things, or one of the first things we'll start doing when people want to shift their sleep, is say, okay, you were waking up at 6:30 every single morning. And even if you are exhausted, eventually your body gets there. Sam, do you have any favorite tips for sleep?
One of my favorite ones is, the fancy word for it is stimulus control. And what that means is only using your bed for what beds are made for. which is sleep and
That
intimacy. Yes. And so something that I find is really helpful and hard for folks is not taking naps in your bed throughout the day, not using your bed to do your homework or do your work or take Zoom calls, no matter how
do you see me
tempting it is.
cringing over here? I'm like, oh.
I know it's really hard. Beds are so comfy. And what that does is it gets our brain to associate our bed with sleep. So that eventually, when we crawl into bed, our brain, that's a cue to our brain, okay, it's time to go to sleep now. And not, okay, it's time to do our homework. I know that's a big one for me.
It's a big one for me too. Spot on. I think that's an excellent tip. Good. Okay, so that's sleep. Feel free to look through that handout. Know too, there are tips if you struggle with nightmares. There are tips on handout, I think 20A. It is for a nightmare protocol. So there are things you can do to manage nightmares. You don't have to be stuck with them. That's something, you or we could help with. Okay, last portion of the please skills is the last E, and this is exercise. And now I'm going to go on a little spiel because this is my jam. And here's the deal: exercise for me has looked very different at different stages in my life. Right? I think I've disclosed I was college athlete, obviously played soccer all through high school. And I also have had a lot of injuries. I've had 5 or 6 knee surgeries, both ACLs done. I have broken heels, rolled ankles. I've done it all. And so exercise has had to shift for me, and I've really had to shift my relationship with exercise, because for me at first, right, exercise was going as hard as you possibly can. It was going on 10-mile runs and lifting as heavy as possible and being both strong and fast and agile and blah, blah, blah. I was being all of the things. And we all get to pick what kind of exercise and physical activity that we like. We need to be engaging with exercise that feels good for our body. So instead of, for me, just running, which I hate just running, just so you all know, running for 10 miles because I thought that was the thing to do. Now I go on a lot of walks, like just nice, slow, casual. If I can get a hold of a neighbor's dog, I take their dog. I love my walks, right? I used to do really heavy lifting, and I still love heavy lifting, but I am not doing it with COVID. So I have one 35-pound kettlebell, and I'll do a little bit of strength work every now and again, right? It's a little bit of yoga, which is something I have a lot of self-judgment around because I'm not particularly flexible. And I do it because my body feels so good after. And I've really come to terms with a routine that works for my body. So you need to find what works for your body. Okay, this is what exercise means. And if your body doesn't like to run 10 miles, don't run 10 miles. Okay. Sam, anything you would add here?
I think you did that beautifully. And I am with you. I am not a runner.
Okay. So for homework this week, our ask of you is to go through this list, think about, and really be curious about the ways in which that you are taking care of your body, and be really curious about your risk factors, right? Is drinking 4 glasses of wine going to set you up for an incredible amounts of anxiety the next day? And what might your goals be then? Like, what if 2's okay? 2 plus some kombucha. Really good alternative, right? Same thing with exercise. If you're someone whose body maybe has some pain, and moving a little bit more would be really helpful for you. Or maybe you're someone that's been trying to run marathons and your knees are breaking down, right? Let's just notice and gently shift toward habits that are going to be sustainable and make us feel good and set us up for resiliency. So check in with yourself. Step 1. Step 2, identify 1 or 2 small goals, behavioral goals related to your health. 3, do the thing. Okay. Engage with those goals. Okay. Thank you. And I hope your quest for wellness goes well this week.